Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of Straight Out of College. I'm Daniel, a soon-to-be graduate from the University of Toledo. For any new members joining us, Straight Out of College is a podcast that focuses on what life is like or what it might be like after graduation. So we interview college students and graduates to see what their perspective is on the transition from college to post-graduation. So today we talked to Nate Davis. We talked about what you should do to prepare for job interviews. We also talked a little bit about going out to conventions, maybe for your first time, and how to prepare for that as well, what you should and what you shouldn't do when going to conventions to kind of make yourself stick out more. So yeah, we definitely had a really good talk. I really enjoyed our talk today, and we are going to be starting the episode right now. You can just tune in, just kick back, listen, and enjoy. Here we go. Sweet. So to start things off, could you go ahead and just give me a little introduction on yourself, just where you went to college, what you majored in, and when you graduated?
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated in 2013, and I went to Malone University, which is in Canton, Ohio, and I was a business administration major and minored in marketing, probably the most general majors and minors you could put together. But that's where I started off. Okay.
And so then, where are you working at right now?
So I'm working at a company called Reseller Ratings. If you check my LinkedIn, it'll say Verint. Verint is the parent company of the company that I work for. So it's a little bit confusing, but the people I work for, the products I sell, are for a company called Reseller Ratings, software company here in Cleveland. Yeah.
Cool. And so, like, how is that transition going from college to? I'm sure you probably had jobs before that, so maybe going into your first job. How is that transition between that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was definitely insane. It's kind of, my story is a little bit unique since I grew up in Massachusetts and then went to college in Ohio. So I really didn't have a lot of connections, family members, relatives that were in different lines of work that I could kind of, reach out to or be connected with in Ohio. So I really had to do a lot of, soul searching, if you will, and trying to figure out, what do I want to do and where do I want to go, and then just trying to leverage the connections I had and the resources that were available to me to make that transition. And I was lucky. I had an offer to me to join Western and Southern Financial Group before I even graduated. So that was a huge success story for myself. After doing a bunch of resources, I knew that's where I wanted to start off my career. And it was a good move. I was there for about four and a half years. So it was a great place to go after graduating.
Okay. And how did you hear about that job opening?
Yeah, so I did a lot of, once I found out or kind of nailed down what I wanted to do, it was really just a lot of searching online of every job posting site that there was. I wasn't super familiar with LinkedIn at the time, so I was really leveraging different websites like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, things like that were posting jobs. If I were to do it over again, I probably wouldn't rely so much on those resources as I would have on resources like Glassdoor and LinkedIn, but I didn't really know too much about those then. So really just sticking to those types of job posting sites. For sure. One of the things I kind of get a little paranoid about whenever I do those job postings through LinkedIn or through Indeed is if there's like that one mistake on my resume that it could affect all the places I apply for. Is there like any good ways about going about that, or? That's a good question. That's a good fear. You definitely don't want to mess it all up. So, what I did and what I've helped others do is to not. I've kind of tailored my resume to the job that I'm applying to. So if I can avoid having one resume out for everyone to see, then I want to do that, because different jobs and different companies are going to look at your experience and your characteristics differently. and you want to be able to tell a story that's going to relate to what they want to hear. So not that you have to make up things, right? You're not going to make up stuff about your background, but you want to be able to have control over how someone's perceiving you, since you're going to rely on the sheet of paper. So anytime I could avoid posting a resume that's just going to be viewed by lots of people, lots of any company, I chose to do that. So I think that's probably the best way to avoid having, that one mistake cost you an interview, is just don't let it happen. Don't post a resume out there for everyone to see. It's also a great way to avoid getting a ton of calls for jobs you may not be super interested in. I've had friends that do that, and that can be kind of annoying.
Yeah, for sure.
But that'd be my suggestion.
Okay, cool. I guess one thing that people need to prepare for, and I feel like they might not necessarily teach this as much in college, is getting ready for interviews, job interviews. What are some good ways to kind of prepare for that?
Yeah, great question. This is huge, right? So you've done a lot of work. You've figured out where you want to go, what company you want to work for, and you reach out, you submit your resume, and they call you to set up that interview. So a couple things to do is just to make sure you know what the company does, right? So you probably have applying to a lot of different companies, and you may or may not have done a ton of research on each company. So once you get that call, you want to make sure that you know exactly what it is that they do, to the point that if that interview person or interviewer was to ask you, what is it that company XYZ does, you'd be able to tell them exactly what that is. And in a way that's not just you memorizing the About Us section on their website. Really take that information, and you have to be able to give it back to the interviewer in your own words. If you're able to do that, I think that's going to show a tremendous advantage over a lot of applicants, as well as doing research on the person you are going to be interviewing with. So normally how it works is you'll have a recruiter reach out to you, and whether it's internal or external, and your first call will be with that recruiter. That's a little bit easier, right? Because that's generally just basic information and being able to, hey, can you give me an example of how you did this in the past? But once you get to the actual hiring manager, the recruiter's probably going to tell you, hey, okay, next I'm going to set you up with Mike. He's our hiring manager. He runs the team that you would potentially be joining. The call's next Thursday at 10. So what your job is to do is to know as much about that individual as you can, and that's going to help you be as prepared as possible for the interview, because there's going to be a time in that interview where he asks you, what questions do you have for me? And you absolutely 100% have to be able to ask him questions, either about his past, his or her past, how they got to their position, information you need to know about the job. You've got to have that lined up. So if you do your research ahead of time, you can come up with some interesting, fun questions to ask, and then be able to layer in the more foundational pieces of information you need to know. So being able to just take that piece of information and run with it, I think is going to give you a huge leg up.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I've always kind of questioned was when applying, let's say for a job opening that I really want, I would consider contacting the recruiter and then just kind of keeping in touch with them. But I guess my question is in regards to when is it asking them for advice, and then when is it overkill? Because I know I've heard multiple things where of people saying that you should be contacting a company or their recruiters once every couple of months or once every couple of weeks, or on a daily basis is kind of the radical side of it. But is there a fine medium behind that, or what's the best way to go about contacting them and just kind of checking up on the resume and seeing how everything's going?
So are you referencing after an interview has happened and they're okay, we'll let you know, and then following up with them after that point?
But I was kind of more referring to if I were to send out an application, I wanted to see what the status of it is, or if I just wanted to get get advice. Right.
Okay. I think so. Let's do it this way. So it's Monday. You submit that application on Monday. I would give them a day or two and then I would reach out. I would give them a call. I'd leave them a voicemail. And if you have their email by chance, I would send them an email. And then you're just saying, hey, wanted to follow up on my application. I submitted that. Very excited to learn more. We'd love to hear back if we can move forward to next steps. And I would send an email about similar to that message, probably every other day for a week. So if it's Monday, you're going to reach out Wednesday, you're going to reach out Friday. And then if you don't hear back from them next Monday, you can reach out again, and that message may be a little bit more pointed. Just reach out and say, hey, I submitted my application last week. I haven't heard from you. Like I mentioned in my previous outreaches, I'm very excited to learn more about this opportunity. I think I'd be a great fit. Doesn't seem like there's some mutual interest here, which is totally fine. But if there is, I would love to connect with you, or I'm going to be moving my attention onto other opportunities. Because the last thing you're kind of putting some pressure on the recruiter at that point to, hey, can you give me a yes or a no, right? We all want that yes or a no. No's are disappointing, but they're okay because you can move on. So just let them know that, like, hey, man, I've got other things in the works here that I'm going to focus my attention on if you don't call me. Hopefully something like that can light, give them a push to give you a call. But, yeah, avoid the everyday thing because here's the deal. They're if it's an entry-level job, they probably have a lot of applicants, and they have to go through everyone. So there is a good chance that they haven't gotten to you yet. But the best way to get you to stand out on top is if you're reaching out politely and respectfully to let them know that you're here. Maybe they'll go and find your resume at the bottom of the pile before going through everyone else's. So just giving yourself the best chance every other day, call, voicemail, email, give them a week, and then let them know that, hey, if this isn't a good fit, I'm going to move on. So they have some more urgency. Yeah.
And I've definitely had my fair share of, I guess you can say learning experiences. I like to call failures learning experiences where you don't necessarily get the job interview and you kind of learn from what you did wrong and how you can do better at it. So what are have you ever had any learning experiences like that where you applied for some job you really wanted and you kind of realized you did something that you probably should have done differently and then kind of adjusted to that, or?
That's a really good question. So the one thing that comes up when I think about what I could have done better, I was at a national convention for a group called SIFE, which is called Anaptys now. It's a business group, and we're at the national convention, and there's this big job fair, and I was going around and talking to this lady at this booth, and she offered me, we were chatting, and she offered me to interview for one of their summer internships. And I was like, this is amazing. Absolutely. This is great. I'm going to kill this interview. So I walk in there, and she asks me one question. She asks, it was something around the idea of, okay, this company has 3 products, and they're unbelievably successful. They're doing extremely well. How are you going to make them better? What would be your strategy to make them better? And I had absolutely no clue how to answer that question. I literally had no idea what to say. I started, grabbing things out of left field and throwing them at her. I had no idea. But when I look back on it, what I think I could have done to help give me some more time and to try and press in a little bit is ask some more questions. I could have asked some more questions about the situation. Okay, how competitive is the market? What are these 3 products? What area are we in? How long have they been successful for? Anything to kind of give me some more info so I could start BSing an answer a little bit. But yeah, that was a major learning experience of going into an interview and really kind of getting my butt kicked. Thankfully, I haven't had too many of those, but that one is probably going to stay with me forever.
So have you been to a handful of conventions or just that one particularly?
I've been lucky enough to go to a couple. With that group in particular at Malone, our Anaptys team went to the national convention a couple of times. And those were really great opportunities because at those events, they always have a massive job fair where very large companies are coming to get to know some of the talent that's going to be graduating in the next couple of years. So that was an awesome opportunity to get in front of some companies and also fine-tune my ability to kind of pitch and sell myself, really.
Right. Yeah, because I personally have been looking towards some job fairs for my industry The only problem is most of them aren't really in Ohio. They're all in California. And so one of the things, when I kind of build up more skills and I'm a little more marketable, my game plan was to go out there to the big job fair for my industry and kind of network myself with people and companies in the industry. But so I think one of the things that I get a little anxious about when thinking about that, as I'm sure a lot of people do, is just going to that first convention and being able to network without being really awkward and just represent the best self that you can be. Is there like anything that you personally do to kind of like hype yourself up or prepare for conventions or any kind of networking events?
Yeah, great question. I think everyone fears that moment where you have to walk up to a complete and utter stranger and stretch out your hand and say, "Hi, my name's Nate," and just hope to God that you don't embarrass yourself, right? That is definitely scary. And I dealt with that as a student. I dealt with that as a professional, just in networking events in my first career. So what I would say is know what you're going to say. Don't wing anything, right? So I write things down. I think things through, then I write them down to help internalize it. So I literally created a script, right? So I'm in sales, so I'm fairly familiar with following a script or a guided message here. But so I literally would write down what I was going to say. Say, "Hi, my name's Nate. It's great to meet you. I'm interested in learning more about dash fill in the blank with available job title," right? And then I would ask them can you tell me a little bit about it? And I think that was really a big key. If you can just lead with confidence and just know that the absolute worst thing that can happen in that situation is what? That they say no, like they don't want to talk to you. I mean, if they're at an event where they're trying to talk to people, they're not going to say no. The worst thing that can happen is you get into a conversation and you realize that, hey, this really actually isn't good for me, and that's not a bad spot to be in. So just knowing that the worst case scenario is not that bad, hopefully can kind of give you some confidence just to go in there, stretch out your hand and say, "Hey, my name's Nate. I'd love to learn more about the opportunity you guys are talking about. Can you tell me a couple things about it?" I think that's a great way to lead. Now, I've been on the receiving side of that. I've been at shows where I'm looking to recruit people, and that was the most annoying thing, is to have someone come up to you and not really know what they want, right? Do they want to know about internships? Are they looking about a full-time opportunity? Do they want to just know more about the company? So leading with just a specific question really helps both parties know where you want to go. So just lead with confidence and have a question. Okay,
cool. That feels like it could definitely get really annoying really fast, for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, everyone's nervous, so it's not a big deal, but it's an easy way to stand out. Definitely. And that was really good advice with the whole writing down. Like that, I'm definitely going to do that before going to my convention, because there you go.
like I'm the type of person where I'm really notoriously well known for having brain farts and just completely flatlining in my brain and just completely forgetting what I'm going to say next, and it just goes down from there. So I think like writing it down and just practicing what you're going to say would definitely help out a lot, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess going on to the next thing, is there anything that's been going really good for you recently? Something that you've been working at that's been getting a lot of progression, something that's really going well for you at the moment?
I mean, I've been pretty lucky. I was in financial services, like I mentioned, for 4.5 years, and then I made a dramatic shift in industries. I went from financial services to software. I wanted to, I pivoted my career because, really what happened was my wife had our first child, and when that happened, priorities shifted and everything kind of changed, and what I wanted to do and what I want my life to look like shifted. So I wanted to find an industry that could support that, and figured that software was going to be the place to go, just based on the research I did. So my ability to take my experience in financial services, pivot, go into software, which I had no experience in, and convince people that, no, I'm still good. I bet you I can still be good at this, and land the job. and advance my career there. That's been something I've been pretty proud of. So
yeah, for sure.
I'd say that's been going pretty well for me.
Okay, cool. And so when you switched over to software, did you go back to school or did you take online classes for that?
Great question. No, I did not do either of those things. I was able to leverage the skills that I had and find a position at a company that valued those things. So it was kind of interesting because I was at a managerial position in financial services and took a step back into what some people would consider to be another entry-level job. So after 4.5 years, I took another entry-level job because I knew I needed to get my foot in the door and get that right experience. And I wasn't going to get that experience by going to school or taking online classes, really. I just needed to get some basic experience to prove to people that I can do it in this industry. And once I did that, I was able to accelerate pretty quickly.
Okay, that's really cool. Because I asked that because, so I've kind of been around in school too. I started off in mechanical engineering, great industry to be in, but I just wasn't happy in it. I did my first co-op and just didn't want to progress in that industry. So I ended up switching to media communication, which definitely was focused more towards what I'm passionate about. But the thing with that was, so the school I go to, University of Toledo, they kind of focus more towards the radio industry and the TV production, like TV industry and news and all that. And as I've been kind of exploring what I like to do, what I don't like to do, I kind of found that the thing I like to do most is I kind of liked the modeling portion from engineering, but I didn't like the precision of it. I like to make things more like kind of on the creative side, I guess. So I guess it kind of put me towards CGI and like doing 3D modeling. And so for me, I kind of went from engineering to media communication, and I'm still going to graduate in media communication, but I've definitely been putting my focus more towards the CGI industry and taking online classes for that. And so that's been quite a transition, definitely.
Yeah, that does sound like a major transition, but what's really cool about that is finding or identifying that you don't want to do something is almost as valuable as finding that you do want to do something, because if you were to continue to go down a path that you're not passionate about, it's not going to lead to anything good. So you've kind of got a cool opportunity where you kind of have this story that you can tell people and say, hey, I was in this one role here that people would not really associate with this, but I've made them come together, and here's how I've been able to do that. I think people would find that entertaining and pretty valuable too. Yeah.
So, with software, do you do what more specifically do you do with that? Do you do coding, or is there a specific software you work with, or?
Yeah, so I'm in sales. So I'm on the sales side. My title is account executive. So I'm what you call a full cycle account executive. So I will take from the very beginning of the process, I'll be reaching out to companies that I think would be a good fit for our software, reach out, try and engage interest, and then trying to set up a meeting with them to show them how our software works, and then work with them to see how best it can solve problems that they have, and then hopefully create a partnership where we can close that deal and help them to be successful. So that's what my job entails at a high level.
Okay.
So I'm not involved in any of the technical side, more involved with the sales side.
Okay. So what you major in still kind of applies to it, even though it's a new kind of field?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go into sales, if your school doesn't offer a specific sales track, which most schools don't, business administration, marketing, because the software that I sell is in the marketing space. So that's where that crossover kind of helped, just kind of being familiar with that industry and being able to stay in an industry I had a little bit of experience in. I think that was nice.
Yeah. So I actually did a presentation for one of my classes about when you graduate, what % of the people actually stick in their major. And I think it was not as high of a percent as what you would expect. And I think it's interesting though, because even though you might not be in the major that you're expected to go into, you still definitely gain a lot of knowledge and information that could apply to whatever major you're going into. So like, for example, with me, I might not be going into mechanical engineering, or I might not be going into the TV industry, but I've learned things from both of those majors that definitely do apply to what my interest is kind of entailed to.